When the one place you can usually turn to for help turns a murder into a comedy of errors, who can you turn to? Today's case is about a triple homicide in a small town that left people searching for answers that would never come. Okay, let's go. I want to take you back, way back, to the end, the very, very end of the 19th century, to a small rural town 60 kilometres west of Brisbane.
Oh.
A place that boasted a humble 449 people by the 1901 census.
Just a small town gal.
And let me tell you what, that could have been 452 if fate hadn't kind of intervened.
Oh.
And as the title of today's episode probably would have spoiled you too, we're in Gatton.
Oh, Gatton.
Oh, Gatton, Queensland in 1898. Feels like it was yesterday.
Just the other day.
Did you know that Gatton was the capital colony of Queensland in 1859 until 1901?
I did not know that.
No,
I
neither
do
did I.
now.
Yeah, well, same,
Oh, that's interesting.
isn't it? So let's learn about it together.
Oh.
So it was colonized by the British Empire, but hashtag what was it? But not only did that include like modern day Queensland, it also included the territory of Papua, as in like Papua New Guinea, and the Coral Sea Islands.
What?
The rest of like Australia, I believe, was under like the Commonwealth of Australia.
Yeah.
Queensland was not.
I should know history of places that, like, I've grown up in Queensland and I'm just learning.
But after 1901, it became a state of Federal Commonwealth of Australia, and I think that's really interesting, and I hope other people do too, but they might think it's a snooze fest.
No, that's very interesting.
I think it is.
Yeah.
The more you know, right? Because it's places like you grew up here.
Yeah.
I've spent like a large portion of my like adult life here,
Yeah.
and as I understand it, actually, you have a bit of a connection to Gatton, don't you?
Gatton, as we say
Sorry,
in the...
Gatton.
Yeah. I used to ride me horses in Gatton
Why were you riding your horses in Gatton?
because I stole someone's horses. No, because Mama Bear grew up in, well, not grew up in Gatton, but had a farm in Gatton. So I spent a lot of my childhood up there. It's a lovely little town.
It's not only the beautiful Australian landscape that takes us west today. It's the Murphy family, and in particular, 3 unlucky siblings who died in a very strange way.
Oh no.
But before the introduction, today we're actually going to be playing like a little game.
Ooh.
And the game is mostly for the listeners,
Oh.
but I also want... You can still listen to the episode and do it too.
Okay.
And the game is called Count the Whoopsie.
Oh.
So it's your job to comment on how many whoopsies you hear, and to also let me know if there are any other whoopsies that you think I may have missed, because there probably are.
I'll let you know if I do a whoopsie.
Daniel and Mary Murphy. 10 points to Slytherin if you guess what their origin is.
Murphy. Oh, the Irish?
Right.
I had to think about it. I nearly said Scottish, and I'm like, no, Irish. Oh, the Murphys.
But I don't know if they were immigrants to the country at that point, if they were born in Ireland, or if they were like first generation Australian. I don't know as far as that stuff's concerned. Could I have found out if I dug a little deeper? Probably. But here we are, right?
Gets a bit tricky when you look into boat logs.
Good Lord, it really does.
It does.
So they're Irish, right? But they're also a family that did not know contraception. But I can't really say that either, because like this was like 1898.
But, like, would they even have known the science, in a sense, of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
I really don't know. But they would have 10 children.
Yep.
Her poor nunny.
I was going to say that's too many, but that's not nice to say when, yeah.
Well, they whittled it down to 7, so...
That's a lot. Do you know age gaps? Like, as in how many kind of...
No.
Is it once every year, kind of?
Well, she would have... I don't even know how old she was, to be honest. So she
Yeah.
may have started at 10. We don't know.
That's the one thing about oldie cases. I want to know everything, but it's not there.
That's right. Honestly, though, there were some parts that I was like, I feel like I get too hung up on certain things that don't actually matter too much, that people aren't that interested in hearing about. So when it comes to things like, oh, this one was born on this date and this date and this date, I'm kind of like, they don't care because they're not here to listen to that. So I didn't dig deeper. I did a surface look for them in no particular order because I don't know their dates of birth. Thanks for calling me out on that one.
You're welcome.
We have John, Jeremy, Patrick, William, Polly, Honora, who went by Nora, creative, Teresa, who went by Alan. Then you have Daniel Jr., Michael, and Catherine.
That's too many.
Too many. I'm one of 7. Too many.
I was going to say, I can't even imagine as a mother or a parent, you would be calling your kids the wrong names. Like, I already do it to my 3.
My mum does that all the time.
Yeah. When you got more than one.
Yeah.
Confusion.
But she does it to all of us. I don't think we even correct her anymore. We just answer.
Yeah. I'm your
Because we know who she's talking to, so it doesn't really matter too much. Anyway, so 8 of them still lived at home, but 2 of them had moved out, and that was Michael and Dan. So Daniel became a copper dog. Yeah. Because why not? And Michael went west, and it was like about 50 k's away from Gatton at that point. He did like government farming. And he was now like Westbrook.
And just a Australian definition of copper dog for those listeners that may not be aware.
Pigs.
Also known as
Popo.
Also known as police officers.
Oh yeah, that one. I mean, that works.
I was like, just in case.
We'll
Copper
tell them
dog.
everything other than a copper fucking dog. Alright.
I haven't heard that in a while. Copper dog.
Copper dog. Anyway, it's Christmas time, right? So Michael, being like the good boy that Michael is, so he makes a trip back over to Gatton to spend Christmas with his family. Then does not. I don't know why. I think it's because he's a policeman.
Yeah.
And he is maybe tethered to his station. Like, I don't know.
Good choice of words. Copper dog, tethered. There you go.
I'm diversifying my language.
I wouldn't really think that a lot of them would have holidays and that around Christmas because you'd still have to have someone
right
on shift.
In saying that again, though, it is a Christian holiday and you're expected to be Christian at the time, so I wouldn't be surprised. But no rest for the wicked and no rest for the policeman either. That's quite nice. But I don't know. Anyway, so Christmas comes and goes. And what day follows Christmas Day? Boxing Day. So you were so quiet. I was like, what day?
I was like,
The 26th.
I'm so like into the story.
She's zoned
I'm
in.
like, yeah.
Well, I guess this story has a familial sort of thing for you because you do have some history, albeit like not like deep to the core in Gatton, but there's some history in Gatton. So what I also thought was interesting, because again I look at the things that don't matter, is that it was also called Boxing Day back in 1898.
Huh.
Yeah. So then I was like, when was Boxing Day called Boxing Day? And apparently it's been called Boxing Day since 1833. Shiitake mushrooms.
Sugar, I would not have.
Which felt like a really long
Yeah.
time ago, right? And then I was also looking up, well, why is Boxing Day Boxing Day? And they don't actually really know why it's specifically called Boxing Day. They just do. But then I read somewhere that they think its origins relate to like slaves and stuff, and that was the one day that they would get off and they would just be able to do whatever. Like maybe kind of sort of, or for a part of the day, or they would get or something. But there was something like a Slaves Appreciation Day. That was like one article, and I don't know if that's the truth. So if it's not, don't cancel me. I read it online.
Why don't you let us know?
Yeah, how about you tell us about all of that good stuff? Anyway, so Michael takes his little sister, Ellen, to the Mount Sylvia races in Caffey, which is roughly about 20 kilometres south of Gatton. And they hang out there for a bit. I mean, hello, it's the races. Seems like everything happens on Boxing Day. And I don't really know what they're racing, but I figured that it's horses. So let's leave it at that, because it didn't say anything else past that. And I mean, that was over 100 years ago, so I can't really find much more. So I don't know what time they left the house to go there. I don't know what time they went back, but they end up getting home. And races were not the only exciting thing that were happening on December 26, 1898.
What else was happening?
There was a dance. in Gatton. So his sister Nora and Ellen want to go to the dance, and he is going to chaperone them.
That's so sweet.
So cute, I know. I would sit. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
I would sit. And then I would stand up, and then I'd sit back down again. And then I would stand up one more time.
Yeah.
Like rinse and repeat until I was done.
Have you seen photos of him?
Like, look, I think he's kind of cute.
Oh.
But there's 2 photos that exist of him, and they're not close up. Mm-hmm. And he has like a big moustache, and he's not old. Like, he's not very old.
Oh.
Anyway.
I'll have to have a look at it.
You bloody will. So he's like their chaperone. I say that, but I don't know if he was going there just to make sure they got there safely, or if he was going there because he was looking for a wife. Like, I don't know the details behind it, but they have to leave at like 8 o'clock because the dance was being held at the Divisional Board Hall in Gatton, which I don't know if that place exists anymore. There's like a town hall and stuff, but I'm not too sure if it's the same location. Anyway, they leave at 8. The dance starts at 9, and it takes some time to get there because they have to go by horse and buggy.
9 at night.
Yeah, late, hey.
I was like, I'm in bed. The dance should be over. It's very late.
That's what I thought too. I was like, that's
Yeah.
quite late, especially for like back in the olden times.
Yeah. Oh, I like
That's-
to party.
I do have Nora and Alan's ages though. So Nora was 27 and Alan was 18.
Nora was 27.
Nora, yeah.
Huh.
So they ended up borrowing a horse from their brother-in-law, who was also staying with the family at the time, William McNeil. And they basically strapped up one of his old horses because it was just, they weren't like racing to get there, so it didn't really matter. And like, you're into horses, so you might know what these bloody things are called, but I don't. On the articles I was reading, they kept referring to them as a sulky. I wasn't reading in context, and I thought they're all moping. Because
Why are they sulking?
why are they sulking? So I didn't get it. But some of them are also referred to as dog wagons and just like a cart or a normal wagon. So that to me was kind of fascinating because I know next to nothing about horses.
Just the little ones.
Yeah. Well, see, because I looked up what a sulky looked like. And to me, it looks like it's like a single-seater thing that just a small person's bum would fit in. Possibly people who do like Paralympic races.
Well, I was going to say, think of like the trotters. Like, it's pretty much like that one. I don't know what
That
I'm
doesn't mean
talking
anything
about.
to me. You just got a blank, so I was like,
Yep.
draw a diagram, draw something, I don't know. But I did get to see a photo of this sulky later, and it just looked like a cart to me. Like, it didn't look, yeah. So
Mama's going to be so proud of you, Mama Kay.
I don't think she will be. I think she'll be like, Darcy.
They weren't sulking. They
Yeah.
took a sulky.
They weren't sulking. They strapped a sulky to a horse and they rode in the sulky. And then at first I was like, oh my gosh, I'm pronouncing sulky wrong. She's going to correct the crap out of me. But here we are. I don't really care. So I was looking at the area and stuff, and I was looking at this place because their farm was apparently in a place called Blackfellows Creek. So I looked at Blackfellows Creek, and then I looked at Gatton, and then I looked at Blackfellows Creek, and then I zoomed out and I went, that's not like 13 kilometers. That distance is not that at all. That's much further. I was on Google Earth and I got out the little measuring tape and I followed it all down. It was like 40 something kilometers away. So I was like, unless Blackfellow Creek is not the original Blackfellows Creek, and it used to be a different one, and they've just changed the name, because sometimes that can happen.
Yeah.
I was like, some of the story does not add up already.
But it's also Gatton, so like your next door neighbour is like from Brisbane to the Gold Coast. Like, it's my next door neighbour. I'll be back tomorrow after I go see my next door neighbour.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to take me a whole night's trek to get there. Like,
Yeah.
no. Like, also, yes, because then you're really left alone, but then also, like,
No.
So, color me baffled. I don't know, but it was further than what they said. Anyway, so this is where modern technology would have come in so extremely helpful. Get to the dance hall at 9:10. So it's taken them over an hour to get there.
Yeah.
The lights are off, the door has been closed and locked. The dance had been cancelled.
Oh.
But I mean, aside from having a mobile phone, which obviously it goes without saying they wouldn't have had at the time,
Yeah.
and they were already on their journey, they would have no way to find out until they got there.
No.
And they were hardly going to try to send, like, I don't know if there are invitations to this dance or it's just this dance on, come here at this time, whatever.
Like flyers up or something.
Yeah. And then I also don't know if this was like an annual dance.
Yeah.
Or if it was just like a, hey, we're going to be
Random.
hosting one at this time. Come and have a shindig.
Or maybe they realise 9 p.m. is too late for a dance to start. That's when it should finish.
All right, Grandma. You're not wrong.
I feel a certain way about 9 p.m. dances.
You do. No, yeah. Anyway, there's not really anything else for them to do except turn around and go home. And that's kind of poopy because, again, it took them about an hour to get there on a horse, and they're going to have to turn around and go the whole way back
They
on
probably
a horse.
would have been dolled up. Like the girls might have been
All
a bit dressed
gussied up. Yeah. And, I mean, Michael might have been gussied up too. I don't know. We don't know that story. So, I don't know what time his parents would have been expecting them home because... I mean, if they weren't together until 9, I doubt they're just going to... The dance goes for an hour and then they turn around and go home. That seems like such a waste of time. Mind you, we have a very different relationship with time and travel now than they would have back then. That probably wasn't much to them. Like an hour's travel,
Yeah.
they're probably used to traveling for days. So an hour was nothing. So they should have, let's say, if they did take the same amount of time to travel home, they would have been home by 10:15, 10:20. The parents wouldn't have known to expect them because they wouldn't have known what time they're gonna get home.
Yeah, thought they're still at the dance.
That's right. Until the next morning rolls around and they're not home yet. So William decides to head off to find them. William is the brother-in-law who's staying with them at the time, and it's his horse
Horsey.
and wagon. And he thought that what had happened is that the wagon had broken down along the way because he had already taken it to a blacksmith twice to get repaired because one of the wheels kept falling off. Top quality. So he was like, I'll see if I can find them along the way. So he traveled up Tent Hill Road, I think it's called, or it was called at the time. It's now Tent Hill Creek Road. But he decided that he was going to travel up there to try to find them. So he sets off. So he was going along and he was keeping an eye out for tracks because he was like, I will see if I can find their I don't know if he was some kind, I don't know.
Well, I also wonder if it's kind of like one way in, you know what I mean? Like only one way they would have gone.
Probably.
Yeah, wonder.
I mean, I don't know how many, I don't think they would have done like the whole side road stuff. It would have been, we all travel in
One
this
road.
direction.
Yeah.
And then he sees a very distinctive track, right? One he's very familiar with because the track is a bit wobbly on one side. Because remember the wheel, right? So one's a straight line, the other one is like an S sort of thing. So he's like, that's my buggy.
That's mine.
So he followed the track and then he saw it veer off the road. So he decides to follow that and he ends up going through wattle scrub and he keeps following up for about 1.2 kilometers, finding what he thought at first were just some piles of clothes on the ground. Only they were the bodies of the 3 who had gone out the night before. So Michael and Alan were laying on their sides with their backs toward each other, about 2 feet apart. Nora was laying on her side about 8.5 meters east of where the siblings were, all 3 bodies forming a sort of triangle.
Okay.
So it feels very intentional. Unlike Michael and Alan, Nora was laying on a rug that looked like it had been positioned neatly. The wagon lay to the south of the bodies about 5.3 meters away. The horse still between the shafts, but also deceased with a single gunshot wound to its head.
Not the horse.
That's why I was like, it's coming up.
Sorry, I was like, I had a feeling, but I was also like...
So the bodies, I mentioned this slightly before, but the bodies look like they have been placed down there intentionally. All of the feet of the victims pointed west. So all of the, I don't know if they're on like point, I don't know, but all the feet were facing west. Michael, however, didn't actually appear to have his hands bound, though it appeared that they previously had been bound and since released. And he also had, and listen, I did laugh, not at the murdery stuff, but just at the fact they keep referring to like his wallet as his purse. And it gave me giggles, so I was like, we wouldn't say that today because that's a bit gay. But he had his purse clenched in one of his hands. It was open and it was empty. Apparently, it is reported that he had 15 shillings in it the night before. So by the time they left, that's $100 today. But that was 15 shillings at the time.
That's a lot to be carrying around. Where are you going with $100 to a dance, Michael?
I don't know.
Well, I guess 3 people.
3 people, but that was
Food,
his purse and
yeah,
his money and stuff. Like food would not have cost
That much
money at all at the time. But also, who would have been open at 9 at night?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, this is so sad.
But what does William do? He goes to the police, of course, to report the crime. Only he doesn't. He actually decides to go to the Brian Boru Hotel. Whoopsie. I wish people could see you. The fingers are on the forehead. Glasses off, fingers on the forehead.
I thought you were going to say he went home. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he goes to the hotel. And I'm like, why are you going to the hotel, William? Well, he's also, remember, he's not really from the area. And they don't have phones.
Yeah.
So he goes to the hotel, because I think that was probably the closest thing he could see with the island. Maybe he was panicking, whatever. He goes there and he has a chat with the landlord. And he tells them what he found. Only there's like 40 odd people that are also in the bar-y, hotel-y thing that overhear him. And they're all like, I want to go see it. So all of them go to the field where the bodies lay. Whoopsie.
Thought you were going to say he was just going for a beer, going to have a cold one.
I probably would too.
He was thirsty. Got to tell someone about this. Yep. Okay. So 40 odd people. Let's go. Yeah, for a little walk and yeah.
A little sightseeing. Well, William eventually gets the directions to where their local police station was in Gatton at the time, and he speaks to Acting Sergeant William Arrell. So William meet William, and the two of them ride together back to the bodies.
Oh, sorry, I just love that rides back together. Hop on your horse. Let's go. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I wonder if he sat pillion.
It's what?
Pillion. Please tell me you know what pillion means.
What's pillion?
By this point, word had already spread. So from the time it took from him to get from the scene to the police and back again, 600 people had made their way to the field. Do you remember how many people lived in Gatton at the time?
Not 600.
Not 600. So it had spread outside of Gatton. And everyone went, oh, hell yeah, let's go have a look at these dead people.
You know 100% there were some women floating around those hotels and they legged it to wherever they could go. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about this?
Oh, yeah. And it literally went nuts. So everyone swarmed in so they could have a look. And they destroyed evidence as they trekked through the area. Whoopsie. It's hard. It's hard.
We're doing good, though. We're doing good.
Yeah, well, yeah. You're doing better than I am. So Sergeant Arrell ordered all of the people to stay away from the bodies, right?
Get out.
Yeah. And he put several civilians in charge of keeping them away. So he went, you stand there around them, don't let anyone near. So that's kind of good. But what he failed to do was actually get people off the paddock. And because of this, all visible tracks into the field were also destroyed. Whoopsie. Nothing to add. Okay.
Irritated.
Okay. Fair. So the Gatton police, they were only like a really small team, right? So they all reported to like the Brisbane police. Because I think Brisbane was like their head office-y sort of thing.
Huh. And that's ages away.
Phones existed at the time, just so we are clear.
In my head, I was like, are they just riding to Brisbane? Like, oh, just gonna...
Listen.
Yeah.
It'll make sense eventually. They might as bloody well have.
Yeah.
So they get in contact with them. But remember, this was back when you had operators. Operator, can I help you? Yes, can you please put me through to the Brisbane police? Nick, nook, 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 brr, brr, brr. Brisbane police, I'm gonna help. It would have been like that.
That was perfect. I loved that.
Thank you. You're so welcome. I don't know what I was doing.
Didn't even practice.
I didn't. That
Yeah,
was all made
I was
up,
like,
but I
that's
don't
great.
understand. Anyway, what happens next is it's beyond dumb.
So worse than what has already happened?
Just you wait, sunshine.
Oh, I can't
You're
wait.
in for a treat.
All right, let me just position my head in my hands.
Yeah.
Early.
So obviously the local copper dogs had already really bungled stuff up, right? As if that wasn't enough. But not as royally as the Brisbane police were about to. So what happened? You asked me. Yes, well, something incredibly dumb, actually. The rumor mill, the mill of rumors, was circulating. Where? In the Brisbane police station, specifically that station.
Okay.
What was the rumor? That someone had created a hoax about 3 people being murdered in Gatton. Yeah, so it was treated as a hoax until 4 p.m. on December 28th.
Quick maths.
They had died on the evening of the 26th.
26.
So a whole day had passed, and then up until 4 p.m. of the following day, until they realized, oh, wait, someone's actually dead. Whoopsie. So the news had been passed to Frederick Urquhart, Inspector Frederick Urquhart. So obviously he runs to the Commissioner of Police, and he's like, oh my god, this really happened. Dispatch me at once so I can get down there. Only he doesn't, and they don't. He felt like it wasn't at the top of his to-do list, so he waited for 5 hours to even tell the Commissioner of Police. Whoopsie.
Oh, Australians, I tell ya.
Brisbane. So it's roughly 9 p.m. by the time he actually tells him. So Urquhart is directed to head to Gatton immediately by the Commissioner. Makes sense. That's what you should do, and to take 2 detectives with him.
That's what you should have done before.
That's absolutely right. So there's a train at midnight. They get packed and they go. Only he doesn't and they don't. They decided that they wouldn't head out until the next day, and they don't catch a train until 7:30 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Whoopsie!
Oh, may as well just wait till morning. It's alright.
So meanwhile, back in Gatton, the bodies had already been removed from the paddock and into the Bramborough Hotel. And I think it was like at 1:30 p.m. on the 27th that this took place. Well before anyone could get there to, I don't know, take photos or draw sketches of where the body's laid, or the horse and the cart, or look for anything in particular. Whoopsie. We're also not even done with the whoopsies in that, Graham.
Oh, I can't wait.
So, obviously, these bodies are kept in like cold storage, and they need someone to come over and do like an autopsy. So they get Dr. von Lossberg from Ipswich. First mistake. Not a whoopsie, should be a whoopsie. To travel over there to do it, because he was a government medical practitioner.
Ipswich closer than...
And it's, Ipswich is much closer than Brisbane is. So he goes over there. And people were really happy because his reputation preceded him. Only it was not a good reputation because he really liked to do rush jobs. Really liked to do rush jobs and not really look into things properly. So he was not the right man for the case.
How busy is your day that you're doing a rush job for this kind of... Like, how many bodies are coming through you, mate? Coming to you.
That's not this kind of episode, doll.
No, it's not.
He was not the right man for this job, and you'll find out
Can't wait.
soon enough.
Yeah, great.
Sunshine is. So, before we get to his findings, let's discuss the condition of the bodies as they're found. Because, I did briefly mention how they were found, just not their condition. What was seen by one of the civilians was that all 3 of them had bludgeoning damage to their head, but Nora had also been strangled, and she still had the hames around her neck.
Oh.
And I know I don't need to explain what the hames is because you understand that that's like the harness, right?
Yeah. Wait, did you say Haynes or Rains?
Hames.
Hames. I was like, my brain. Yes, continue.
Apparently, it was tight enough or sufficiently tight enough to cause death, but they apparently had the heads pulverized.
Far out.
So brain matter was, Michael also had a very foreshadowing visible gunshot wound to his head. I looked at so many different websites. I read so many different articles. You saw one of the articles on my screen when we first sat down to record. And I was just going through and piecing lots of stuff together. So there's one that I went through, which was on the police government site. So I assume that was from like original records. I'm going to assume very lightly that that's what it was from. And it says that Alan and Nora's clothes were torn, and it looked like they had been R-worded before they were killed. And there are other articles in there that make mention of male fluid being found on their clothes as well. And that their nethers had been R-worded by the brass handle of a whip. But who's telling that story, Mary? Because if, let's say this comes from the coroner. Let's say it's provided by the coroner.
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to sound vulgar, but unless there is a whip still there, how do they know what item is going to cause or is going to be the perpetrator of penetration?
Yeah.
They won't know unless they found the whip and it had material on it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, if a bit of the whip came off, but
the
you wouldn't have been
brass-
able to do
brass-
testing and stuff.
But
anyway.
also brass the brass isn't going to, it doesn't flake. So I don't know.
Yeah, where are you getting that from?
So that's why I'm like, well, some articles I think embellished some things and
Yeah.
others left things out specifically, which was annoying.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dr. von Lossberg wrote that they had been forcibly and criminally assaulted prior to their death, but there are also a few skeptics that claim that that didn't happen. They thought that it had been staged to look like there were R words to cover up the true purpose of what the real crime was, which I can get into later. But that is the way the police were thinking, or the detectives were thinking it was going in that direction anyway. He obviously notes down the bludgeoning damage that, were witnessed on the skulls and also about the brain. But he didn't mention anything about the gunshot.
Huh?
He didn't mention anything about the gunshot in Michael's head.
Can you repeat that?
There was no mention of a gunshot wound to Michael Murphy's head. Whoopsie.
How? How now, brown cow?
Moo.
What? I can't.
Same. The autopsy concludes and the bodies get buried. Because, they've found everything that they can, right, about the bodies. Bludgeons and some damage to the hoo-ha,
They haven't really looked at everything, or haven't written everything down, apparently.
Anyway, the police chief was not happy with the report that von Lossberg had written because there were inconsistencies that were all over the place. So a few days later, he orders that the bodies are exhumed and that a different doctor does a little look-see to see what they can find, right? Because it was one of the civilians who said, no, I saw a gunshot wound on his head. And the police commissioner's like, well...
Care?
It's not on the report, so
Yeah.
something just doesn't add up.
You exhume bodies when you need to find more evidence, not when you need to complete the job properly.
Or not when you just need to confirm the evidence that was gathered already, just days earlier.
Far out.
So it had been a few days, right? Can you tell our listeners what the climate is like in Queensland?
It's hot, humid, and you get a bit moist in sweating and faint and yes.
Yeah, and
And
what
especially in
does-
Gatton.
Well, exactly. And what does that condition do regarding decomposition?
Yeah.
Oh. So, okay. We buy meat from the supermarket, right? And we put it in the fridge because it slows down how quickly it deteriorates. If we have something outside in the warm, wet, then decomp and deterioration is sped up. So I'm not trying to explain this like you're a 5-year-old. It's like to the people. So if you are buried in an area that is warm and wet, then your decomp is going to be accelerated.
Yeah, so I didn't even think of that in the ground. It's one thing when you're out and in the natures and what's the word?
The environment,
That's the word. I'm
ecosystem,
the natures,
the natures,
the environments.
Yeah, but also not to
yeah.
mention what creatures live underground and stuff too.
Nope.
Worms and other bugs and stuff that also like to eat the bodies. So you can imagine that Dr. Rye had a bit of a gruesome experience because even though it had only been a few days, there would have been a lot of decomposition that would have happened at this point. But even still, he found the gunshot wound in the head very easily, might I add. He was also able to probe the wound and take the bullet out for proof that it was a bullet that is required. So that hadn't been done either, by the way. The best part is who was made to stand with him while he did his autopsy.
A family member.
Dr. von Lossberg. Kind of to be shown how to do it. I don't know.
Ooh. Could you imagine the tension
Oh,
in that
I would have been
room?
like,
Ooh.
if that were me, I would have been embarrassed. Or I would have killed Dr. Rye and I would have ran away.
Oh, to
That's
be a
what I would've
fly
done.
on the wall between those two.
But not only was von Lossberg with him, but 1,000 people from far and wide had to come over also to be a part of the spectacle. And that's a bit macabre, but that's just what they did.
Well, I also wonder how many murders have happened around that area around that time.
Not many.
Yeah.
If any. Not many. If any.
That morbid curiosity.
Sure, and also back then I think they had a different relationship with death than what we have now. Death happened probably a lot more frequently because the medical practice now is much different.
And I guess also farmers. A lot of farmers would have been there killing their own.
Well, not only just killing their own livestock, not even just killing like pests and stuff from the area, but also having farm-related incidents and dying themselves. So whether it was just a nick that turned into MRSA, whether like anything.
Oh, I didn't even think of that, hey? Like gruesome farming.
So death would have been pretty normal
Yeah.
at the time. So while Dr. Rye was able to find the bullet, he could not confirm the assertion that the girls had been criminally assaulted one way or another because of decomposition. So there wasn't enough left in that area because of that for
Yeah.
him to be able to confirm what had happened.
If only someone had done their job. And someone, I mean everyone, had done their job. Ay, ay, ay.
Look, I mean, you're not wrong. So anyway, the whole R word thing was inconclusive. He couldn't prove it either way.
Yeah.
But I mean, he also couldn't say at that point that it didn't happen. But it just looks like it may have. And fun fact, not so fun for Dr. Rye, he would later die from the bubonic plague.
Oh.
I don't think it was related to this. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was not related to this, but
Oh.
he died from the bubes. Are you kidding?
Oh.
Isn't that wild? I think it's wild.
1800s.
I know. Wild West.
Oh.
Literally. Wild West of Brisbane.
Yeah.
Oh, also, Daniel, he had left his position with the police. He quit because he wanted to go home and be with his family,
Good.
which makes sense. I mean, where was he in the first place?
Yeah.
Probably would have stopped it. 'Cause
Yeah.
So he ends up going home, and he ends up helping in the search for them. You know? Anyway, about 2 weeks later, after the murder, so not after the burial, then reburial, but from the original murder, there is a coronial inquest.
Yeah, like
Coronial.
the
For coroners, oh my lord. I didn't even.
Yeah. I think they call... Well, I think it's in Australia, because normally it's just like coroner's report, I think.
Look,
Where it's like...
You're telling the story, darling. I don't know. But I support it because that
Educating.
that actually makes sense. So there was an inquest that was held about 2 weeks later afterwards. And Losberg was asked a very important question about, I don't know, a bullet. And he confesses to have known about the wound. He said, I saw the wound. I didn't write it down.
Oh, whoopsie.
Yeah. Don't know why he didn't write it down.
Just didn't have time.
Well, he didn't write it down because handling the bodies, the 3 bodies that he barely handled, gave him a sudden and slight attack of blood poisoning.
Oh, yeah. You've never heard of that?
No, but I'm not
Yeah.
a doctor. He is, so...
Yeah. No, that's a thing. Yeah. Far out, Brussels sprout.
What I think, personally, is that... Let's say he felt sick. Let's say he felt sick. I don't think it's a sudden attack of blood poisoning. You can't just get blood poisoning from not doing anything.
Yes, you can.
Okay, well, again, I'm not a doctor, so
Yeah.
I'm not a mathematician.
Misinformation, Joey.
Sorry, don't cancel me, guys, please. But let's say he felt sick. And let's say it was because of the bodies.
Yeah.
Honestly, that would make me feel sick too, right? If he wrote down that there was a bullet wound, then he would be responsible for having to go and probe it and take the bullet out and then write more notes about the thing. So what I think personally, I don't know this with any certainty at all, but I think that he was being lazy and thought bullet equals more paperwork equals I can't be bothered. No bullet, buried, problem solved, because when they're buried, they're not going to be exhumed.
And then when they asked me about it, I was sick.
Yeah, I got the black lung, Pop.
I'm sick. What a idiot.
Idiot.
An idiot.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a whoopsie or not, but it's like, I would have
No.
just lied about it.
That's a slap on the back of the head and do your job properly.
I would have lied about it. I would have been like, I'm so sorry I didn't see one. I don't know how I missed that. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Not, oh, well, actually I did, and I didn't write it down.
Didn't write it down.
Like, I know that also saying that is dishonest, but I'm not going to stand up in front of a bunch of people and look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So,
Just make up some random...
I will make up a lie.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
I've done it.
So that's not the only thing that came out of the inquest. What also came out of the inquest is that there were these 2 girls who lived not far from the paddock, and they claim to have heard gunshots and screams the evening that it happened.
I was gonna say earlier, how did no one hear the gunshot?
And they didn't report anything. Whoopsie. Because, I mean, even if they did, they probably couldn't have saved the three of them. And the two gunshots, I believe, would have been one for Michael, one for the horse. Maybe that's when the girls screamed, and then things happened to the... I don't know. But also, I had a macabre thought when I was... Macabre's my word of the day, leave me alone. I had a thought that I didn't like about what if Michael was the last to die and he was forced to be there while the sisters were R-worded.
Yeah.
And he had to experience that, and then he was taken out.
Yeah.
That would be horrible. Especially if you're bound and you can't do anything about it. I don't know. I wouldn't like it. But yeah, that's a big whoopsie. So you can even make that a twofer if you really want to. It is also claimed that the damage to Michael's head was done post-mortem. So as in they killed him and then beat his head in as well. Maybe to make it look like the three had the same sort of injuries.
I wonder, was it maybe to try and hide the bullet? But then I guess you don't, like, you know,
I don't think it was in the
entry-
same location. I think it was a different location as to where the bullet was versus... Because I think it was the side of his head that had been caved in.
That just sounds like someone's messed up and wants to...
Cover the tracks. So yeah, and I mentioned it like a little bit earlier, but what it came from was the inquiry that the girls were staged to look like they had been R-worded to cover up a case. And there's a theory about it that I'll get into that kind of covers that, so I'm not going to touch on it just yet. But either way, I don't think these people had a clue. And it, like, at that time, like, there's no science really in forensics for that kind of stuff. Like, but they're also doing like psychological forensics on a situation, not on a person, because they don't have a person.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like they're just making this stuff up as they go, and that to me is like annoying and fascinating, all at the same time.
Yeah, I'm actually like, as much as we have gone whoopsie to all of their stuff, I wonder what it had been like for them. Like, was that their first? You know what I mean? Like, not knowing what to do, like in Gatton, not Brisbane, obviously. But were they just literally never trained for that? They never knew what to actually do in case of a murder because they're...
Well, probably because I don't think that they had very many homicides at the time.
Yeah, so we look back and we're like, common sense, but then...
No, we can still look back and say common sense. Come on. There were some really dumb things that happened in that.
Get it together.
That whole event was just wrong. So there was questioning that was done regarding the murders during the inquest, most of which were aimed at the Murphy family, painting them in a negative light as if they had something to do with it. Dumb things like, who was the last person that was awake that night? But there was this other thing where in summer, apparently, some of them like to sleep with their doors and windows open for a breeze to come through. Because again, technology, no aircon, that would have been the worst. I would have hated that. Absolutely hated that. But apparently they did. Only there was one evening during summer that the windows and the doors were closed. Ooh, suspicious. They were calling some of the family members... Oh, what was the word? Because I didn't write it down. They're calling some of the family members like either like neither non-complying witnesses or difficult witnesses to like the situation. They're dealing with 3 people in their family that were just wiped out. I would probably be a bit of a shithead witness too.
If you're coming at someone and being like, what's this?
Did you do it?
How about you do some actual police work and go ask someone?
Yeah.
Also, closed doors, Australia, bugs, flies,
spiders, snakes,
mosquitoes.
Maybe they wanted to have nookie.
Yeah, you don't know.
Like,
you don't know.
Come on.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. They also turned their attention specifically on to William McNeil.
Of course they do.
Yeah. And the shillings that were missing, they blame either him or one of the civilians that were watching over for taking the shillings.
Ooh.
Yeah. But there's no proof, there's no evidence, there's no charges. This is just what they're thinking. You stole the money, no, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was your horse. Your horse was old. You could bear to lose an old horse.
Yeah.
It was your wagon. The wagon was crooked anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
But no one knew the dance was cancelled.
That's right.
I'm sorry to put this in now, but it's been going through my head.
Yeah.
How the f*** were there no people around? You know what I mean? Like, if people are rocking up to this dance, how are they not like, you know what I mean? Like, people think, oh, that's, okay, continue.
But I mean, remember, like, well, okay, here's the thing. So the murder, they believe, happened sometime between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. of the following morning. So they don't know when. That's just the window they have. And I should have mentioned that before. But there was a big window. So when you look at their time of death is listed as 26/27 because they don't know exactly when they died. But they don't think it was straight after, went back on the road and stuff.
Okay.
So could have been anything. At the end of the day, everything they had was weak and less than circumstantial. So they didn't really have anything and they couldn't really charge anyone with anything. It was just a mystery. So a statewide search starts. There's a hunt for clues. So there are two famous trackers, Paddy Perkins and Colquhoun, which were accompanied by some like lesser known trackers.
Before this search for clues, they spoke to the family. And did they speak to neighbours around the area? Like, did they actually investigate the people around town? Okay.
The police, they went everywhere that they could to find out. And it was
Okay.
big news in Gatton. But remember, the family are referred to as living in Gatton, but they're closer to Mount Sylvia than they are to Gatton.
Okay.
So it's not like and neighbours would have known them.
Yeah.
They probably would have been familiar to people in town, but
Yeah, okay.
they asked who they could. Anyway, so they would search every nook and cranny, bushland, water. They climbed shit. Apparently they jumped shit. And then all they found at the end of the day was just exhaustion. Splash.
Oh, these numpties.
I mean, these are the trackers that they're paid to try to find. So it's not their fault.
Oh,
They're just
not
looking.
them. Yes, okay,
Yeah, the
yeah.
police are the
Yeah, I was thinking of
Sorry, Francis.
I was thinking of the police, not the trackers.
Yeah, the police are they're bad people, dumb people, good intention, bad. Yeah. So they end up running into a well-known troublemaker, and his name was Richard Burgess, and they found him in Dalby, and they noticed that he had in his possession a saddle that had been stolen.
Oh.
So they feel like if he wasn't the murderer, he was either involved in some way, shape, or form, or he knew them, the murderers. Murderer/murderers. But there's also no description of a saddle being missing from the horse originally, and there's no description of it, nor is there one of this one. So there's just a saddle. He's in possession of a saddle. I hope it's on a horse. Because I don't know why else he's going to be walking around with a saddle.
But also, if the horse was carrying cut, it wouldn't have had a saddle on it.
No,
Yeah.
that's exactly correct. Because it would
Yeah.
have had its hames on it. The saddle is not going to fit on the horse. There would be no point in doing that.
Yeah. Whose saddle is that? Well, you did it.
Yeah. But then also was the saddle maybe in the cart? I mean, the cart was not very big, so I can't imagine that it would be. Anyway, they thought it was him. And then it turns out that he was able to prove by witnesses that he was 50 k's in a different direction altogether. And he had nothing to do with that incident. Even though he was like a bit of a naughty guy. But he wasn't even in the area. So that lead died in the arse. Then there was also a butcher named Thomas Day, but he did have a couple of other different aliases too, which is great. So he worked at Clark's Butchery. Clark's Butchers is about 300 meters away from where the bodies were found. Just so we know, it's very close. Very, very close. And we all know that there are some stories already out there about butchers who like to slaughter more than just animals. Anyway, so he's close to the crime scene. They were pretty limited with regards to like blood tests and that kind of stuff, but they did notice that he had blood on his personal clothes. Again, he's a butcher though, so I'm kind of like, dum dum dum. I'm a butcher.
Oh, gum gum dum dum.
Yeah, gum gum dum dum. I butcher. I cut. But they said to him, oi mate, listen here, you better not be washing that top anytime soon.
Don't you wash that top,
Don't
you
wash
butcher.
it. Yeah,
with
there's-
blood on it.
There is an investigation going around right now, and you've got blood on your
You
hands.
put that down right now.
That's right.
You put that knife down right now.
That's right. So he waits a couple days, and then he boiled his jumper, and he scrubbed it like crazy, and he washed it a couple of times, and he wasn't scrubbing with a brush and stuff. But guess what? Nothing came of that. They never saw him again. They didn't talk to him after that. It didn't really matter.
But he washed his thing after they said not to wash the thing.
Yeah, but I mean, they also weren't going to be able to test it to prove it was human. I think they're just trying to like scare him into a confession.
Part of me is if he's like, oh crap, I'm a butcher, I better get rid of this blood or they're going to pin me for this. Other part is, I did it.
Well,
they might find blood on there.
not only was he a butcher to the area, but he was also a stranger to Gatton, so he wasn't from there, and he ended up leaving a couple weeks later.
I bet he bloody did.
And the trail goes cold from there. However, there is a lady from Brisbane who believes that she solved the entire case.
Oh.
So I can't remember her name because I didn't write it down because, again, it's not that important. But she believes that the murderer, because she went through jail records at the time and she was matching certain stuff and whatever. But apparently there was a crim called Joe Quinn. It had to be a Joseph, didn't it? And he was a swagman. And he broke the law like a lot. And he also had a bunch of fake names too. And apparently Michael had, well, they said unmasked, but I like to say outed because it sounds like he's gay. So he had outed this Joe Quinn about his criminal corruption and the bad things that he had done. And it all happened when they're at like a barbershop drama. And apparently that just sent him off. And he couldn't really handle that. So he decided that he was going to enact his revenge. So he gets a group of local Larkins, new word unlocked, like a layabout, it's a crim, it's a bum, it's someone who's like a gang.
Yeah, like
it's a naughty boy.
Yeah, he's a naughty boy.
He gets a group of naughty boys together to help him enact this revenge on Michael. And apparently they were waiting for him because he would pass through Gatton, but he wasn't from Gatton.
Yeah.
But he did make regular trips there. So they believed that it was kind of like a right place, right time sort of situation, and that's how they died, and that's why he staged it to look like R-word, but really all he wanted to do was kill Michael, which is why he was on the shot. So there are some things that kind of add up a tiny bit there, but then also don't. Anyway, there's a lot of people who have also gone through, combed everything to try to solve the case. I'm not that kind of girl. That's not what you're going to get from me. But they all believe, well, not all of them, a lot of them believe that that is the most plausible story of what possibly happened. And again, they're looking at the documents, they're looking at police records, they're looking at that kind of stuff. I'm too poor to afford them, so I'm looking at what I have access to, which is like free access Google. Yeah. But whether or not that is the truth, I guess we will never really know. And that brings us to the end of today's episode.
Oh boy, that was very interesting.
But like, imagine that in little old Gatton.
Had you seen this one before at all? Had it come through?
No.
Yeah.
So when you sent the thing through,
Shout out Benny, Jennifer. That was very, very interesting.
yeah.
Let's hope that maybe we get our little things shared around town, and maybe,
Fingers crossed.
you know, might get some leads into, okay,
Yeah.
someone knows something.
If there's anything else that you know, you might be related to someone who might know, you can always let us.
What a crazy story. Oh, one thing I don't like about cold cases, besides the fact that, you know, people die and we don't get justice for them, obviously, is I just want to know why. So maybe we'll go for a little day trip to Gatton, upload something on the TikToks.
Yeah, the tickety talks.
Thanks for that, Dull. That was very annoying and very interesting.
You're welcome. A little piece of history for you guys. Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye. So he makes a trip back to Gatton. It's just what I'm saying. Gatton.
Gatton.
He takes a trip back to Gatton.
Go up to Gatton.
Yeah. So he makes a trip. And they're off. And the baby was born. So sorry. I don't know where that came.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my buggy.
It's my buggy. So you got to do it up high, just once. Come on.
Huh? I don't know how much it got to be.
Come on, Gail. You could do it.
That's my buggy. The Balimbin.
The blizzard.
Balimba.
Balimba.
So they all. Can you tell our listeners what the climate is like in Queensland?
Very hot.
And very humid.
That was like
Good job.
time. Yeah.
Good job.
Coronar. A coronar. Coro. Real can't.
I know we're trying to be better, and I'm really not making it easy for you.
Yeah, you just, like, day one of trying not to swear and you bring out the most frustrating case.
It's a case of your people. Leave me alone.
It's a story of my people.
It is. Well, then your case is probably a story of your people.
Yeah.
Anyway, at the end of the day, everything that they had was weak and less than...
Sorry.
Bitch.
Yawning.
At the end of the day, he gets grubba.
And a larkin is?
I don't know.